Salon staff mocked an old lady for the haircut she wanted. But when she returned, no one laughed. Everyone knows that visiting a new salon can be nerve-wracking, but imagine if you were an older woman who had never had professional hair done before and you walk in with a picture of what you want and the staff laughs at you. Well, this is exactly what happened to an older lady who visited the salon for the first time. Olivia Johnson crossed the street and stopped in front of the beauty salon considered to be the best in town, seen from the very expensive and luxurious exterior. Eye-catching with neon signs and beautifully decorated stained glass windows. Deep down, did the old woman take lasting pleasure in being in such a place? Pausing for a moment, Mrs. Johnson gathered her courage and pulled on the doorknob. The interior was even more striking than the exterior, and the old woman thought she had done well to choose this particular spot. The walls are covered with artfully crafted collages of women's hairstyles of all kinds on rows of leather armchairs and chrome handles and pristine sparkling mirrors that sparkle the mind. Fantasize with their grace and elegance. The rich toolbox on the table shows that employees certainly know their stuff. "Hello, can I help you?" a woman named Maggie, the salon hairstylist, asked Mrs. Johnson, looking confused for a moment. Then she said, "I would like my hair to be cut and dyed if possible." Maggie gave the old lady a professional assessment and said, "Yes, we can cut your hair any way you want, but I have to tell you right away that it won't be cheap as our salon is considered the best of the city." Ms. Johnson fumed for a moment and then, turning red as a lobster, pulled a crumpled fashion magazine out of her purse. "Look, I want this look. Don't worry how much, I will pay whatever you say," the old lady replied to the hairdresser, looking at a page in her magazine. Maggie raised her eyebrows and could barely contain a mischievous laugh in response that, "You don't understand what you are asking for. This haircut is for young people. It won't look good on you because you have thin hair. And thin gray face, believe me. A few pull ups will make you completely bald and then I'll have to give you a free wig or something. I think you should go for something simpler and cheaper. But this haircut is exactly what I want, and I want to dye my hair back gray too." Ms. Johnson responded shyly with tears in her eyes. Nastiness and whispering to each other. "But why do you still need to cut your hair like that? Are you going to get your old husband off his feet?" someone has said badly about Mrs. Johnson. "I have not had a husband for more than 10 years. Now the old woman shakes her voice so she did not acquire all her strength to avoid tears. "This hairstyle and a little more younger should not be picked up." His words have added to the mocking voice are the unanimous smile of colleagues who have been very pleasant by poor seniors, who cannot make fun. Ms. Johnson left the living room and the old woman crossed the rectangle and turned into a quiet street with a humble beauty salon. He has only 2 armchairs and has been found to have a small number of external luxury and shine traces. When the pretty girl was worried and sincerely gave a pretty girl, when a pretty girl was worried and sincerely gave a pretty girl. When asked by their hairstylist what kind of haircut she wanted, the older woman presented the exact same photo from the magazine. Deep down, Mrs. Johnson didn't believe she would be able to have her hair cut here, especially after the cold shoulder assigned to her in the upper salon. In his domain. The girl is happy to make Olivia's dream come true. Give her a stunning hairstyle that looks even better in reality than in pictures. On top of that, Nancy dyed her client's gray hair any color she wanted and as a bonus even did her nails and thus turned Mrs. Johnson into a real beauty. "Thanks for being a real magician, it's the best gift ever. Today is my birthday, I am 70 years old," said the old woman amusedly, marveling at her reflection in the mirror. During her time as Mrs. Johnson's barber, Nancy chatted with her about the many things that caught the client's attention to her heart because the girl turned out to be an orphan who took hairdressing classes a few years ago. Sadly, Nancy lives alone with her son and struggles to make ends meet in a rented apartment. During their conversation, Mrs. Johnson learned that the poor girl's husband had left her 5 years ago and with a small child. Nancy's husband, John, is a freelance construction worker who travels from state to state in search of profitable projects in which the young girl shares a roof with her ailing mother, who was bedridden for many years. One day, a few months after the departure of her husband, in the north of the country, Nancy received a letter from him, which the man wrote dryly and coldly that he had found his love there and had founded a new family there. This shocking news made the girl cry all night, refusing to believe that John had betrayed her. But time passed and her husband never returned. The old mother's health deteriorated day by day. After burying the woman she considers her biological mother, Nancy closes the door and leaves the keys to the neighbors. Although it is very difficult to leave the house, the girl cannot bear to stay in the house that is always reminded of her ex-husband's betrayal. Beauty Salon. Of course, they only paid a few cents here, but the girl was undaunted and full of hope for the future. "Goodbye, Nancy." Madam Johnson gave her a hug and thanked her for being so kind and welcoming. Although Olivia's heart was stirred after hearing the touching story of the girl's life, she found the strength to die happy under the warm sun. The old woman decided to walk to the supermarket to treat herself to a delicious treat for her birthday. Before she could take a dozen steps, however, a cheerful female voice called her Mrs. Johnson, truly a friend. "I'm so happy to see you look great." Olivia turned around and saw Kate Simmons, a girl she taught English in school, standing in front of her thanking you. "Nice to meet you," suggested by Mrs. Johnson. "I would love to, but I have a better idea than to stop a place and celebrate your birthday in a restaurant. Don't thank me, I owe you a lot, trust me." That's the least I have, could make her friend Kate talk and eagerly take the old woman's arm. Miss Johnson surprised her former student by first ordering dinner at a restaurant and then taking the elderly woman to the same elite lounge where she was refused service here not too long ago. It turns out that Kate Simmons ended up becoming a businesswoman and is the owner of the place. The young girl took Miss Johnson's hand in the store, where she proudly introduced her beloved teacher to the staff. Maggie, standing next to her, didn't immediately recognize the same old woman who had dropped in this morning, because her appearance had changed dramatically since they last met. But when Mrs. Johnson caught her eye, Maggie timidly lowered her eyes and put on her friendly mask. Kate is eager to hear what her former teacher thinks about her living room. As Mrs. Johnson was saying this, she wiped away her tears and walked for the exit. Kate caught up with the professor at the door and brought her to her office to be ready to listen to what the annoyed woman had to say. As she got older, the man calmed down. A little depressed, she told her ex what had happened that morning. Kate listened patiently to Mrs. Johnson, then her face changed and left the office. The businesswoman gathered her subordinates in the hall and looked at everyone in a cold voice. "You all got fired. This is the best salon in town and it offers the highest pay. I'm sorry you didn't appreciate it. May this be your farewell lesson from tomorrow. Don't set foot here again." Frustrated employees scattered around the living room thought they would be out of work in no time. Meanwhile, Kate calls all of her classmates to invite them over for dinner to celebrate Miss Johnson's birthday. It is worth mentioning that the celebration was wonderful, and the woman of that time had not felt so happy for a long time. The next morning, after Mrs. Johnson's recommendation, Kate offered Nancy the senior hairdresser in her living room, but it wasn't the final good news for the unlucky orphan of the day. That greatness. It wasn't until that night that Nancy learned the important news. Olivia Johnson invited Nancy and her son to move in with her. As soon as she opens her eyes, the magic will disappear in a hazy haze. But no matter how much she rubbed her eyes, the pleasant fact that remained above her head was Mrs. Johnson, whose next of kin had made a will. It was decided that after her death all her savings and the house would belong to Nancy. However, the orphan who treats Olivia Johnson like her family doesn't like to think about the possibility of inheritance. Instead, Nancy prays to God every day for the health and long life of her clients.